today, let's travel back in time for a bit. Let's explore the historical context of youth civic engagement and its impact on the LGBTQ+ community. Let's dive into the past to understand how it shapes our present and future. So let's embark on a journey through history, exploring the monumental impact of student activists. These remarkable individuals at such young ages have ignited significant changes in our society, showing us the power of youth in shaping our world. Let's start with Barbara Johns, an African-American high school student who at just 16 years old led a walkout to protest the poor conditions of her segregated school. This bold move contributed to the landmark Brown v. Board of Education case, forever changing the landscape of public education in the United States. Then there's Ruby Bridges, who bravely became the first African-American student to integrate an all-white elementary school in the South at 6 years old. Despite facing immense hostility, Ruby's courage paved the way for school desegregation. Next, we honor Malala Yousafzai, the youngest Nobel Prize laureate, who fiercely advocated for girls' education in Pakistan, surviving an attack by the Taliban. Her relentless pursuit for education rights continues to inspire globally. Closer to home, we also recognize David Hogg, a survivor of the Parkland School shooting here in Florida, who turned his grief into action. Co-founding Never Again MSD, David has become a prominent voice against gun violence, advocating for substantial policy changes. Let's also talk about Zoey Luna. At 13, when her California school district tried to expel her for using the girls' bathroom, Zoey fought back. With the ACLU, she filed a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education, leading her school to update its anti-LGBTQ+ bullying policies. Zoey continues to advocate for transgender youth and starred in an HBO documentary about her quinceañera, highlighting her journey. And then there's Ashton Mota. Ashton became a public figure in Massachusetts' Yes on 3 campaign, advocating for transgender protections. As a Black Latinx trans teen, he shared his experiences in an elite private high school, advocating for the right to use his preferred name and play on the boys' basketball team. Ashton is now a youth ambassador for the Human Rights Campaign, where he promotes the rights of LGBTQ+ people of color. So panelists, reflecting on these examples, how do you see the impact of such young activists shaping today's LGBTQ+ youth? And what lessons can be learned from their courage and determination?
It's amazing how so much has been accomplished by people that are so young. I think it's really inspiring, right? And so as much as we know that we need many more young people involved, I think what you just covered, the history there, shows how much we've already done, what we can do together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about young people's perspective in the world, how they haven't been told the word no enough yet, how they believe that all things are possible. And in that belief in possibility, they end up really pushing the boundaries of what is possible and what the adults around them say, no, you can't do this. And they simply ask the question, well, why not? You know, like, give me a good reason why, and we can talk about it.
There's something about when a child or youth or even a young teenager, when they speak, right, their motives just seem different. You know, I think when we hear adults speak, we're questioning what's behind it or what they've been taught. But when you hear, you know, a young teenager or a young child, you're getting the truth, like, right. You know, and I think that's something that's really impactful.
And it's amazing that these young people are advocating for themselves in these ways, right? No one else is stepping in and stopping gun violence in schools or providing education to girls in Pakistan. They have to stand up and do it for themselves. It's brave and it's impactful, and they do it successfully.
Yeah.
I think it's really impressive.
That's something that we strive to do. You know, in my work with the Butler Center for Service and Leadership, we are trying to empower students to be catalysts for social change and advocates for themselves, like you mentioned. And I think what's so interesting in every single one of those examples that you shared, I noticed that it all comes back to small, simple actions consistently that lead to incremental change. And so I would really encourage, like, all students and youth, that any small, simple action that you can take, as long as you're passionate about what you're doing, if you're consistent in the work that you do, will lead to change.
want to piggyback on that. So since I've been working with youth for the last few years, I noticed that they want tools more than ever post-COVID. They're eager to learn. I think what you said, Mario, is very important, that we're seeing youth fight on their own, and they don't have to be fighting on their own. This movement right now in 2024 really means we need to be together and united. So, yeah.
We hear that a lot in Sunserve too in our groups that we run. We run groups for LGBTQ young people ages 13 to 17. We also run groups for older youth as well. And that is something that they want. They want the tools of how they can be the change makers in this world, how they can do things to make a difference and support themselves and their community.
It's great.
I think the passion, though, that you mentioned is super important, right? Because we heard some great stories from people having some children and young people having wild success. But we also know that it takes a lot. Like in some cases where it's an uphill battle, right? So you've got to have that passion or that fire within you that you're going to keep going even when you get a no, or when someone says, no, this isn't the way it's going to be. And I think that it's our job sort of to find more ways to light that fire. And so we get more results like what we heard about.
Yeah.
I think an important component of that is mentorship, especially when we're talking about youth and civic engagement. And so I know something that's so important, and I encourage everyone at this table to do. Like, I hope you are engaged in mentorship and mentoring, especially our LGBTQ youth. I find that it's so rewarding to be able to give back to them in that way, and they deserve it.
100%.
But I also think, looking at the history, that there's this unfair expectation from adults that either don't listen, or they're the ones that are behind some of the laws or some of the many things that are getting in the way of youth and are causing them to take action for the things that they're feeling. A lot of the people that we saw in the historical section, they were put into the limelight. They were thrown into not just history, but also in front of the cameras, and their face was plastered across the country and across the nation and across the world. And that's something that is both incredibly brave, but again, adults need to step up and do more and really take care of the youth, because the age-old saying, the youth are our future, is like, yeah, they are our future, and you have to don't create stumbling blocks for them to be their most authentic self. And I feel like many times adults do that.
Yeah, and I think the best way to step up as an adult is to be a mentor,
right,
and listen to your youth. Yeah.
That's 100%. I want to go back to March for Our Lives. I was a facilitator for it in Miami, was one of the volunteers, and it was the last movement I saw before COVID that had parents with us, adults with us. I was only like 18 or 19. I just got out of high school, so I was like, okay, I need to go back into the movement. So at that time, though, it was the biggest rally I saw in Miami that actually cared. All adults were there. The pastors were there. Everyone was there. And I haven't seen something like that in a while.
So one question I have, is around adults and providing mentorship and ensuring that you're not providing direction, but instead creating the space. Like, I think that's a challenge for me, is sometimes in a mentoring relationship, I could feel like I need to provide the direction, when in reality, I need to listen and create space for that. So I'm interested to hear how others sort of manage. When are you mentoring versus directing?
I think you're mentoring when you're providing resources, when you're not giving directives, but you're instead being a resource to connect that person to what it is that they want to accomplish and that they want to pursue. So something that I'm really proud of that I get to do is, through the University of Miami, we have a mentorship program through the LGBTQ+ Center. And so I'm able to participate in that program, be a mentor to an undergraduate student. And really, they come to my office once a week for an hour, and we sit in my office and we talk about anything and everything that they need. So whether it's just talking about like relationships, class, academics, or they're going through something and need resources, I'm providing those resources.
Yeah, it's so important to make that space. With Safe Schools, something that we've had a lot of success in recently is actually looking at high school students and asking them, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to produce? What do you want to see happen? And telling them, make a plan, make a project, and we'll give you all of our tools available to us when it comes to media for you to make it happen. And we've had great success with a GSA from a local school, that they started doing this show called Taboo Talk, and they're actually talking about things that are taboo, and from a Hispanic perspective. So it's geared towards Hispanic parents to talk about the things that they don't want to talk about with their kids. And the student that has done this, his name is David. He wrote the outlines. he did it all, and all I did was give him the studio, give him the camera, and edited his stuff. And he's doing great with it, and he's already doing season 2. We just applied for a grant for it. They're really excited about possibly awarding us this grant, and it's been a huge success. And exactly that, just give them the space, and they will surprise you.
And I'm so thank you for sharing that, and I'm so grateful to hear stories like that, because something that I never want to take for granted is, all those stories that you share got national media coverage, but those, in essence, were small actions that people decided to take. And every day around us, there are students and young people doing such incredible transformational work that I don't think people realize is super transformational and has such an impact. So yeah, and they don't get the national attention. And so I just really want to give people their flowers that are out there doing any work right now. Thank you so much for what you do, because so often your work goes unrecognized. And yeah.
GSAs are doing a great job. The college ones are doing great. Like Miami-Dade College Queer Collective's doing great. UM Outlaw's doing great. A lot of the GSAs revived after 2022. And what you said about the high schools makes me so happy to hear that taboo talks are happening again. That used to happen a lot pre-COVID. So I really am happy to hear that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
It seems like a lot of what you're all saying is that the names we spoke about, they got national attention. There's a lot of extrinsic motivation, people following them online, liking what they do, but there's so many youth who do amazing things and don't get that type of attention. And that it's really up to us just to acknowledge people, to see what they're doing, to cheer them on, to support them when they get knocked down, and to help create an intrinsic world where we're all engaging in civic activities and support.
I think one of the things that's really challenging is in this very divisive political world, right? I think people go out there and they make a statement and they're attacked for their statements, right? So I think that's really challenging, because youth see people get attacked, be uncomfortable for saying things that they need to say that are important, authentic to them. It is about still showing youth that they can say these things, they should say these things, that they can be safe doing it, right? Because the world sort of, I think, shuts us down often when it comes to these sort of things.
And Chris, you talked about passion earlier, and I think that passion aspect is just so important in this type of work because of how thankless it is. Most of the time, you're out there, you're talking to people, you're getting people to vote, you're a case manager for impoverished LGBTQ youth, or you're working in a homeless shelter. That's all really tough, draining, thankless work most of the time. And if you're trying to just do it to get national attention, chances are it's not going to happen. So you have to have that passion to be able to want to do this work and to want to make a difference.
Absolutely.
And just do the things that you would have wished someone did for you. The way that I approached my job with Safe Schools was really thinking about what would I have wanted adults to have, what opportunities would I have wanted them to give me in high school? What did I not receive? How did I go unseen? And then be like, I want to do something completely different. I want to empower. I want to see. I want to create that space for LGBTQ plus youth, because that's so important. Because it wasn't done for me.
I love that you shared that. That's exactly why I got into higher education, and I'm in the role that I am into today. Is because I was very lucky and very privileged in my education, but definitely saw instances where I could have been more successful if I was provided levels of support that I now try to provide to my students. Exactly. And so it's really fulfilling and rewarding when you get to just, like you asked, being a mentor, when you just get to show up and be yourself authentically, and just showing up in a space and seeing a younger person just resonate with who you are, and seeing them light up and see I could be you. And I'm it's not that hard. I was in your space 10 years ago.
And that type of sentiment is exactly what we look for at SunServe with who we hire for our team. I think about the people that I work with in the Youth and Family Services Department, and if you asked any of them why are they doing this work, the answer is to be the person that I wish I had when I was a queer kid.
Yeah. Wow. It's beautiful.
I think that's a great stopping place for us in this segment. And I want to thank you all for your contributions. And each of these young activists we discussed in their own way has shown that age is not a barrier to making a profound impact.